and let us all do we can to build a better future.
AOC's upset. She's crying, doing performative art. But I got a whole treasure trove of people talking about how they're afraid of Dr. Cornel West, who's running in the Green Party. Look, let me be clear here. I am in firm support of third-party candidates. Yes, and I know I've gotten pushback from this, but I believe in being consistent here because I've interviewed people of the Illinois Green Party. I've interviewed people of the Illinois Libertarian Party. I've interviewed people who are with Socialist Alternative or Independents. And they're going to be clear here, Socialist Alternative is a political organization, not a political party. I've interviewed people of smaller third parties, independents, etc. And I believe that third parties have a right. And I want to see the Green Party succeed. And yes, because I've interviewed libertarians, and no, I don't agree with their points of view, but I believe in being consistent. I want to see the libertarians succeed. Ideally, I would like to see, and this would be tough for them to pull off, the Greens win a few electoral college votes and the Libertarians win a few electoral college votes. I want to see both parties get recognized federally, and finally we might see, dare I say it, controversial statement, some democracy in our republic. I don't know. Maybe, again, I'm being idealistic because what I want to see happen and what's going to really happen are two different things altogether. But that's just me being idealistic, and that's a problem I have. Sometimes I'm too much of an idealist, and it's an issue. It is an issue because I like to believe in a better future and a better world. But unfortunately, people like AOC, she's triggered that Dr. Cornel West is too much of a big risk. Too much of a big risk, too much of a threat because, voting Democrat or voting Republican works perfectly well. Both parties owned by Wall Street, both Democrats and Republicans owned by the banks, the corporations, the war profiteerings, big pharma, the healthcare insurance industry, the prison industrial complex, dark money, etc., etc., etc. Again, you could be a diehard Republican voter or a diehard Democratic voter and try to explain to me why Team Red or Team Blue is better than the other. But I look at both sides and say, you're just a sucker. You're a victim of domestic abuse because Democrats and Republicans will slap at you, spit at you, but then when they need you, they'll be like, "Oh, I'll change." And then once you give them what they want, they go right back to cheating on you and stealing your wallet and so much more. So again, if you vote Democrat and Republican, fine, that's your choice. But I will treat you like a moron. And I didn't call you a moron. I will treat you like a moron, but also I will look at you and just think, why don't you just get out of that abusive relationship? I could see that shiner. Be brave. Take off the sunglasses. Show me that black eye. So here is AOC. Dr. Cornel West is too big of a risk for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Since his announcement of the 2024 presidential bid in June, supporters of third-party candidate Dr. Cornel West have framed his long-shot campaign as a historic opportunity to elevate progressive ideals they felt establishment figures like President Joe Biden have long ignored. Again, this whole talk about President Biden being a communist or a socialist or a leftist, no, he's not. He's a corporatist. Seriously, anyone that's calling him a communist, open up at the source, find a new word, okay? This whole idea that Bernie and AOC have power, they don't. They're sheepdogs for the Democratic Party. They're never going to do anything that they want. However, even close allies like Representative AOC are appearing reluctant to step behind him, saying the temptation of left-wing challenge to Biden is not worth the risk of a second Donald Trump presidency because it all comes down to Donald Trump. Look, I get that Trump lives rent-free in your mind, AOC, but my goodness, is this getting boring to hear? So speaking to the Hill over the weekend, the progressive New York Congresswoman and close philosophical ally of West expressed reservations about his campaign after recent discussion to change his affiliation to Green Party and reprised former candidate Jill Stein's ill-fated run for the presidency in 2016 to help Trump win the White House. Look, Jill Stein didn't win any electoral college votes. And you know what? For the states that Hillary Clinton lost, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, etc., just to trigger the vote blue no matter who, people. I am glad that happened. And I was happy to contribute my vote in Illinois for Dr. Jill Stein for the Green Party. I was happy to do that. And you know what? I did it again during the 2022 midterm, during the 2020 presidential election cycle. I did it for the 2022 midterm election cycle. And I'll do it again in 2024. I want to live rent-free and vote blue no matter whose head. Now, again, she goes on to say, this is from AOC, I think he has a very long record of service and academic thought leadership, AOC said. of Dr. Cornel West. I think just right now, given the Electoral College, it's very difficult to square the very real threat of a Republican presidency. What's the difference? We all know Goldman Sachs is going to sit in the White House, be it Democrat or Republican. We all know the Wall Street executives are going to be in the ear of the president, be it Democrat or Republican. Republican voters, Democratic voters, do you really think you have a seat at the table? No, you don't. To quote George Carlin, who's doing that great big Broadway musical in the sky, laughing at us while he's doing this great number. It's one big club, and you ain't in it. You ain't in it. So again, the threat of a Republican president was a risk of giving a very small margin of electoral votes needed to ensure that President Biden wins. Now, look, again, diehard vote blue no matter who, diehard Republican red. We don't have popular vote doesn't matter in this country. Electoral college matters, okay? Now, in order for Dr. Cornel West and the libertarians or any third party, they got to get massive ground support. And I do hope that we see the silent majority, the 50% of Americans who identify themselves as independent, wake up. Don't let these people bully you. Don't let these politicians bully you. Don't let vote blue no matter who tell you how to vote. So again, everyone is saying that, oh, Dr. Cornel West his election will benefit Republicans. No, my vote is going to go to a third party candidate. Now, again, for some reason, though, we have people like Voosh, and yes, I'm going to bring up a video from the Vanguard of all things. But hold on. It's kind of interesting because Voosh, however you want to call him, decided to weigh in on Dr. Cornel West, and he calls him a Nazi. Like, I'm just going to throw this out here. Dr. Cornel West is not a Nazi, okay? I can't believe I have to say that. He's not. And calling him that is a huge insult. But if you don't believe me, here, let me play this video for you. Bear with me, folks. You might rage scream at your camera or your screen.
The Cornel West talking to Glenn Greenwald and Russell Brand. And I think that's actually interesting because it kind of is evidence contrary to your notion that he's only going after Biden voters. The fact that Cornel West is speaking to the audience of Glenn Greenwald and to the people that watch the Russell Brand show, I think proves the fact that he's trying to build a coalition of disaffected independent Democrat and Republican voters, people that might otherwise have voted for Trump. So if he's going on Russell Brand's show and Glenn Greenwald's show, making the case to a majority right-wing audience for leftist policies like Medicare for all, and maybe convincing some of them to vote for him instead of Donald Trump, then I think that's objectively a great thing.
Now, you think Voosh is going to agree with that? No. The answer will surprise you. Brace yourself for this one, folks.
No, that's a bad thing. Because when he goes on those shows, and I know because I watch them, he does his spiel. Corporate politics bad, both parties bad. You know who thinks corporate politics are bad? Nazis. They think the Jews run them.
Come on.
See,
you can't
no,
say
no,
that Cornel West
not
is
come
a
on.
Nazi.
I mean it fully.
Honestly, God, 2016 broke people. Look, and I'll be real here. When Trump got elected, I was a little bit nervous too. But then after a while, look, here's the thing. One thing I look back fondly on, especially with the Trump presidency, is the man knew how to entertain people. He knew show business, right? And I'll never forget when he retweeted. He didn't tweet this out, but somebody made an image of Trump's head, putting Trump's head on Rocky Balboa's body, and he retweeted that. I really hope Trump goes all out for the 2024 election. I just want to see him eviscerate the people. I just want to see 2016 repeat itself. It was pure gold. Now, I'm more than happy to contribute to the chaos by voting third party because I just want to live rent-free. I want to live rent-free in people's heads too. Here, now listen to this one. Again, shout out to Refuse to Conform, Semper Fi. Today on Vanguard, Gavin makes a counter on why many people who have been impacted by Biden's crime bill won't just fall in line for Biden. And Vosh replies, F their experience. Just shut up and vote for Biden, the guy who wrote the crime bill. the guy who worked with segregationists, the guy who was against busing and desegregation, the guy who yelled at brave Anita Hill, the guy who sided with credit card corporations to make student debt what it is, the guy who voted for the war in Iraq, Biden. Shut up, poor people, and vote harder for Biden.
Make the calculus that you want. I'm not in the business personally of telling people necessarily who to vote for or voter
do it.
shaming
Wait,
them.
why not? It's a moral judgment. We should make prescriptive
Because Vosh, I think it depends on which state you live in. I think that for everyone in my audience, they probably have slightly different experiences and slightly different priorities that might lead them to wanting to vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump, but also people that would want to vote for Cornel West and have no interest in voting for Joe Biden. Maybe them or people they know have been affected by the crime bill that Joe Biden wrote. Maybe people they know have been affected.
No. Fuck their experiences. Fuck my audience's experiences.
Don't ever insult your audience. That's show running 101. You don't say F them. You don't call them MFers. Respect your audience. Always. That's show running 101. You call them your mornings, your sunshines, your lovelies. As you guys are. As I should. But seriously, hey, he's dismissing his audience. F their experience. That's what he's saying to people who've been impacted by the neoliberal policies of what was once former Senator Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who ran once but twice, but 3 times. 3rd time's the charm, obviously, for presidency. 2 times he lied and ran an abysmal campaign. Both campaigns were abysmal, filled with lies. But somehow 3rd time's a charm because, they got to fight off against the evil Donald Trump, right? Again, I look at my live stream audience and I hear your stories, your experiences, your perspectives. A lot of you have changed my mind. But he says F their experience. Let's continue.
Fuck all of them. If there's a moral argument to be made, then their opinions don't matter. You say what you think is right. In Texas, is it Joe Biden or Cornel West? I don't get into this. So my interest in electoralism isn't get out there and vitalize the system. As far as I'm concerned, there are right and wrong answers, and I want people to make the right ones. And I'll be as forceful about that with my audience or others as I feel is necessary. A lot's on the line here. I just worry that while we're all starry-eyed, looking up at the sky, hoping that maybe with this esoteric strategy we can get Cornel West to somehow get more votes than the prior third-party candidates have, and that would get him the $15 million or so in federal funding.
Yes, I want to see that happen. I want to see that happen for a lot of third parties. I want to see it happen, yes. And I know, I get pushback from people saying, well, what do you mean? Even for the libertarians? Yeah, them too. I want the whole system to really shake to its foundations. I just want to see it happen. Hopefully in my lifetime while I'm still young enough.
That he could then use to get, let's be real, not that much more of a percent of the vote. Debate against Joe Biden, which would be a senile old man throwing rocks fest, accomplish nothing. Joe Biden maybe wins, maybe loses, but it's harder for him now against Donald Trump. And all of this is at the risk. I mean, we're flirting with the worst possible outcome. That's what I'm worried about. It would be a lot easier to make these decisions and take these risks in an environment where loss does not come at mortal expense.
So that's somebody acting holier than thou. But now let's go to corporate media. I know. Shout out to Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on, you know what? I'm just going to call it Phoenix from now on. I'm running with my idea. You could still keep the bird logo and the X, and you could call tweets fire or flame. Did you see the flame on Phoenix? Did you see the fire on Phoenix? So shout out to Case Study QB. Follow him on Phoenix. Phoenix, yeah, that's right. I'm rolling with that now. That's going to be an official thing. Black voters not enthusiastic about Biden's second term. Yeah, exactly. And they have many legit reasons, as do a lot of people. No matter what generation, color your skin, how old or young you are, guys, gals, Gen Xers, boomers, millennials, Gen Z, a lot of people have reasons why they're not enthusiastic about Biden.
Joe Biden became the first Democrat to win a presidential election in Georgia since 1992 when he won in 2020. And just to show how crucial Black voters were to that win, by our calculations, if less than 1% of Black voters stayed home or voted for Trump, the outcome of this election could have been very different. And basically something that we heard on the ground from the director of organizer from the New Georgia Project, which is easily pushing the largest voters registration efforts in the state. They registered about 30,000 people alone this year. He said people are just frankly not running and jumping about another term of President Biden, and they're frankly keeping their options open. And that's something that I heard from voters consistently, is that while they're aware that Joe Biden could be the default, they're still wanting to see who else could potentially get in this race.
Now, again, if you listen to RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Network, Black voters are not enthusiastic about Biden. If you saw that interview that Tucker Carlson had with Ice Cube, Black voters are not enthusiastic about Biden. Democrats have done nothing for Black voters. I'll go a step further. Democrats have done nothing for voters as a whole. If that offends you, vote blue no matter who, good. I hope I'm living rent-free in your head. I really do. I'll be your Huckleberry. I'll be your little Huckleberry. It's fine.
At least one voter told me they were considering Cornel West. But the majority of people here said, even though they may just be voting for Joe Biden in the end of this, their big concerns right now is the economy. They're still feeling the stress of inflation, and jobs are drying up in the state. Even though we've seen some of this good economic data, we just haven't seen those perceptions seem to catch up yet. And as you mentioned, these unfulfilled promises. Student debt was something that we heard consistently from voters, that they really wanted to see that policy come to fruition. But obviously, after the Supreme Court struck it down, we know Biden is trying again, but they were really disappointed that that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and Georgia is important, of course, on its own, but this seems to be also a microcosm of what's happening across the country. We know that Black Republicans made some inroads with particularly Black men last time around. We know that this president,
Also, again, how can we forget, under Barack Obama, Black wealth dropped significantly under that administration. And guess who was his vice president? Oh, that's right, Joe Biden, who, again, Joe Biden was against busing and desegregation. He wasn't on the right side of history during the civil rights movement. So this whole thing of him marching with Dr. Martin Luther King or going to jail with Nelson Mandela, I mean, come on. Come on here, folks. Come on, vote blue no matter who. I know you're scared of Trump, but come on. Come at me with something better.
Despite a very impressive track record, it suffers from a lack of enthusiasm from a lot of Democratic voters. So, talk to us a little bit about how this could be worrisome beyond the borders of Georgia, but in other battleground states.
Absolutely. That's something that someone brought up to us, is like, when there is an enthusiasm gap, you need to pay attention to it. I think this was a problem for Hillary Clinton in 2016. She was not able to galvanize enough Black voters to get behind her. And continuously, Black voters seem to be a litmus test for Democrats in this state. You need to be able to secure and motivate the Black vote in order to win in national elections. And something that people raise a concern about is Biden hasn't been in the state very much. He's been there 3 times since he's taken office. He's been to other swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, a lot more. And there's also concerns about investment. A lot of these groups said that they're not seeing investment until the October before a major election. And Black voters really need to see sincere and continuous engagement in order to feel like their vote matters and they're not just being thought of every 4 years. And then their promises, their priorities are forgotten for the next 4 years.
That's Politics 101. But here's something else, again, that's probably causing AOC and Vosh and Vote Blue no matter who and Biden supporters and K-Hive and G-Hive to panic about, and that is that this could be potentially a very contested election. And AOC is afraid because, remember, Bernie Sanders and AOC already threw their support behind Biden. So this whole talk of another progressive movement, it's not going to happen in the Democratic Party. It's going to happen as a third party. So here, shout out again to Case Study QB on Phoenix. Here's the flame of a 4-way race.
A 4-way race. The 2024 presidential contest is anything but settled. And in it, you write in part this: we are underestimating how turbulent next year's campaign will be and how likely, on the current trajectory, it is to become a 3 or even 4-person race. If voters are faced with a nearly 82-year-old incumbent who may not be able to serve a full second term and a 78-year-old challenger who could be a felon by Election Day, millions will seek a safe harbor. As long as Trump appears on track to be the GOP standard bearer, I think Biden will be insulated from any serious primary threat. Yet, there are 2 markers to watch this fall, by which time any other Democrat would have to get in the race: the president's fitness for the job and his approval numbers. Put less delicately, does Biden have more spills as he did at the Air Force Academy? And does he finally get credit from voters for the improving economy? However, Trump's resilience with Republicans and the 36 and counting federal counts against him suggest there will be an opening next year for a third-party option. It may seem quiet now, but I've never been a believer in the myth that nothing happens in August. And
let's be very clear here about Trump's support. You do realize that this current indictment is impacting Trump and all these corporate media hit pieces on him. It's only making him more popular with his supporters. Like, what more can you do to Trump that hasn't been done to him already? Look, I'm not going to vote for him, but I do know this. You think he's the overall criminal? There are politicians who are far more devious, far more brutal than Trump. And you know what? Like I said, I had a conversation yesterday with a friend who's a liberal. And they were like, this is it for Trump. And I turned to him and said, you know, what happens if he walks away from this? You do realize how strong he's going to be. And they paused there for a minute and were quiet because they didn't think about that. Because I said, like, hey, you know, our judicial system only works for the rich. Our judicial system's horribly flawed. Hunter Biden went into his thing thinking he had it in the bag, and then, just throwing it out here. Just throwing it out here. I do hope the Dr. Cornel West campaign continues to grow. I want to see it succeed. I want to see Green Party, Dr. Cornel West on the ballot, all 50 states. That goes for all third parties. All third parties.
Jay Martin, it's a great piece. And you've certainly hit on something here where the real concerns about the 2 major leading candidates right now, including, as you note, even Democrats who really think President Biden's done a good job, are sort of reluctant.
Speak for yourself, man. Biden doing a good job. Hey, let's have democracy in chat. Is Biden doing a good job? Type 1 for yes, kid. I'm loving it. I'm living my best life. Type 2, no, dude. It costs $300 just to go outside, man.
To vote for him again. So when you look at the field and you see some potential spoilers, who could they be?
Well, I think that with let's start with Democrats. I mean, I think with Biden, for a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents, and even Republicans who voted for him, John, the bargain was essentially, he's an emergency break glass candidate who gets Trump out of office, ends COVID, mission accomplished. And I think that there's voters in this country who didn't think he'd run for a second term, by which time he was pushing into his mid-80s. And so I think that's the fundamental challenge for Biden, is that the economy by every metric is improving, but yet you don't see a corresponding bounce with his numbers. Now, that may come later. It may be a sort of late developing metric, but right now it's not there. And if you're Democrats, that has to be concerning. And eventually, you come to terms with the fact, John, that voters are judging Biden separately than they're judging the health of the economy, because they've just moved on. And so I think that raises the question of, if Trump is the de facto nominee, and you put up those numbers on the screen, they're national numbers, they're not Iowa numbers, grain of salt. But if Trump wins the first 3 or 4 states in February of next year, and he's the de facto nominee in February of 24, I just think it's really difficult to see a scenario where there's not some kind of a moderate third-party candidate who gets into the race, because there's going to be a lot of votes.
Now, here's the thing. All right. We already have Dr. Cornel West in the race. We already have him in the race, okay? He's the progressive answer, okay? And when it comes down to Trump potentially becoming the nominee, I will not underestimate him. I think, yes, he does have a chance to become the nominee, despite all the legal troubles. But even then, so many Americans are disappointed in Biden. His approval ratings is in the toilet. Kamala Harris's approval ratings are even lower than Biden's, and that's saying a lot right there. But unfortunately, this whole talk of a moderate. So anyone who thinks that no labels thing is going to be a thing that's going to help the world or help out our politics, they're going to be a pragmatic party. It's not. It's a centrist corporatist party. That's what no labels is. It's filled with Republicans and Democrats who are corporatists through and through. But AOC, hey, she says Dr. Cornel West is too much of a huge threat. Democratic Socialists of America are afraid of Dr. Cornel West. Everyone's so triggered of Dr. Cornel West. And you want to know why? Because his campaign and his announcement running in the Green Party shines a light on their hypocrisy. So how should we end this segment? But then with the words of one of the co-hosts of RBN, Nick, let's play it. Because apparently DSA, AOC, and everybody is so triggered by Dr. Cornel West.
Dr. Cornel West is putting a lot of fake progressives, a lot of fake socialists in an awkward position. So check this out. The DSA is split on whether they should support Dr. Cornel West or Jim Crow Joe. I want you guys to understand the split here is the rank and file DSA members who see Dr. Cornel West as the closest to their values. Meanwhile, the DSA leadership is like, you guys don't know that we're just Democrats here to sheep herd young people back into the Democratic Party. You guys think we care about principles? In 2019, we said we wasn't going to endorse the Democratic Party nominee, but we did anyway. We told people that we need to help Joe Biden defeat Donald Trump to protect the working class of this country. One of the original principles of the DSA was to help build up a third party. Now they're like, fuck that. The DSA are Democratic socialists who ran defense for Democrats as they broke the rail strike. So the DSA had members who break strikes. The DSA have members who vote for war. The DSA have members who vote for the Iron Dome in Israel. And DSA still refuses to expel these people. What is a democratic socialist anyway? Socialism is inherently democratic. Decolonize your mind and stop buying capitalist talking points.
Yep. I wanted to let that play for its full entirety. So that way all of you can see that. Unfortunately, I think many of these diehard vote blue, no matter who liberals are stuck in the mindset of 2016. AOC triggered by Dr. Cornel West. You would think in theory, the quote unquote progressives of Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, DSA, all of them would come together and support a third party candidate because Biden delivered on nothing for progressives, for all voters, but they're not. I say support third parties and break away from the two-party system. This election cycle will intensify, and this is the time when third parties, the silent majority, the 50% of independents in this country who don't identify as Democrat or Republican, finally speak out in one voice and say no more. Don't let the establishment bully you. Don't let Democratic and Republican voters bully you into voting for Team Red or Team Blue. Don't let the corporate media bully you. Don't let the politicians bully you. It's time for us to speak out. Stay tuned to Hard Lens Media.